John, how can you always have the right TV for the right application without carrying hundreds of valves on your truck?
You can carry the hundreds of valves on a trailer behind your truck.
That's too funny. That would work, but how are you going to do that? Maybe there's an easier way.
You can use Sporland's interchangeable cartridge style Type Q and Type BQ TEVs. Type Q is a conventional design and Type BQ is a balanced port TEV.
Well, come on. I need easy. How easy is it?
Easy as 1, 2, 3.
And it serves thousands of unique applications. So what's the process? How do I put this together?
First, you select the thermostatic element assembly. Then you select the body that you need. Then you select the right size cartridge for the application to get the proper capacity TEV for your application. And then I guess it should also be said you want to actually assemble those into a single valve.
That'd probably be a good idea.
Indeed.
These easy to select and assemble valves mean you're always carrying the right valve for the right job then. If folks want to learn more, what do they do?
You can go to sporland.com and find more information on the Type Q and BQ thermostatic expansion valves.
I guess that's Jim and John for Sporland signing off.
Hey guys, question number 2 for the month of October. What is the proper superheat for a low temp case? Give me your answer at arpgiveaways@gmail.com and I'll let you know if you won. Thanks guys, have a good one.
We've all been there, in the middle of a job, everything going smoothly, until boom, you're missing a part. United Refrigeration is your one-stop shop for all your refrigeration needs. Use your computer or smartphone to go to www.uri.com at any time of the day or night to check stock on your favorite brands, such as Copeland, Sporland, Carlisle compressors, Danfoss, Emerson CPC boards and sensors, Carrel, Hussmann parts, and K2Therm. United Refrigeration Inc. is home to these brands and many more. Looking for information on refrigerant conversions or refrigerant banking? Quick access links on the homepage can get you to the information you need. All approved accounts are able to see live to the minute inventory and pricing. Product not in stock at your local branch? No problem. Use the nearby stock feature to find a local branch that does have what you need. Are you looking for a branch address, phone number, or after hours number? That's all available as well. Just click on the branch locator and search for your local branch. Have a model number and looking for a replacement part? www.uri.com/ARP has a vast list of quick pick replacement parts. Just search for the model number of the equipment you're working on and click the replacement parts tab. If you don't have an account, click the register button and we'll have you online in no time. With more than 400 locations in North America, each United Refrigeration branch is fully stocked for immediate pickup. Our branch employees have in-depth technical knowledge, so we can help you get what you need when you need it. Visit your local store or www.uri.com/ARP today. United Refrigeration Inc. has all your solutions down cold.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to Advanced Refrigeration Podcast. You're here with your host, Brett Wetzel and Kevin Compass. So, yeah. What are you doing?
So I'm sitting here half dead and, can barely breathe because I've been in a room basically getting hot boxed all day by refrigerant and torches. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight.
Sweet.
So
yeah. We were
how
struggling.
was your week?
It's going all right. I'm as I've been dealing balls deep into training for the past months. Sending out notifications, sending out communications, and trying to make sure everything's scheduled. And we have a class going on in Florida in 6 days, and Fort Myers, as you all are aware, has just been bombarded with hurricanes and stuff, and so we've had some cancellations and stuff. So just trying to do the normal stuff and get the classes filled to make sure they're filled to full capacity. But other than that, where are you at? Are you doing service work? Are you doing construction work? What are you doing this week?
I'm in between both. I'm finishing a project we started 13 months ago because we never got all the parts.
Cases finally came in.
No, I have cases like literally parts. We're like rebuilding racks. Like they literally just got. We waited. I'm not even joking or exaggerating. 13 months almost for Carlisle service valves.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the manufacturer forgot to order them like at like month 4 or 5. Everybody just kept asking for them. It's been kind of like a disaster. Like there was like so much stuff forgotten. Then the Rona hit, and then the project sat for a year.
Yeah.
Then they never ordered anything while it sat for a year. So like they had like basically like 2 years to order all these parts, and they just dropped the ball, like dropped it.
Damn.
So yeah, we're like busting through this now. So we got like a little lull in between, like, manufacturers lying and saying they're going to have cases delivered and that never show up.
They're not lying. They're just just their estimation of when they're going to
It's
arrive.
like when
right?
your dad says he's going to the store for some smokes and milk and never comes back.
My dad came back. See, that's different though, because my dad came back, but he just every time he came back with a new stepmom. I'm on stepmom number 5.
Yeah, like I mean, the case is like it's always it's going to show up on Wednesday. All the cases are going to be there. You get there on Wednesday, none of the cases show up. So now they got 3 guys sitting here with nothing to do, and it's like, okay, well, this is great for people's livelihood. So yeah, we got a bunch of guys. We're finishing this. So like the last 2 days, I think we changed like I don't know, probably close to like 37 service valves on compressors. So me, another startup guy, and then a fitter or two. So we're banging along, and of course, we are just dying in this room. I mean, it is
just hot or what?
Sand club rack house on the ground,
outside,
like, all box, like Pill Phoenix box on the back of the building.
Yeah,
just dying. I mean, between 2 racks, I mean, nothing is holding. I mean, it's just there's stuff bleeding through random spots. I mean, it got better and better and better. It was horrible at first. So at first we did all the ball valves. So we did all the circuit ball valves. It was so bad we had a 36-inch box fan in there, like a big fan. It was unbearable at that point. Like we almost pulled the whole charge.
Damn.
Like it was that bad. So
the main liquid line ball valve wasn't holding. Right.
It was just sitting in the store. It was the main liquid line ball valve holding. Like there was this, you just the condenser ball valves didn't hold. I mean, you name it. Like, I mean, ball valves didn't hold. It was a nightmare. It was just stuff weeping through. So, I mean, there's a couple ways to deal with this. I mean, obviously it was what we were doing. It was horrible, and there was no way around it being horrible because how much work had to get done. But I mean, let's be honest, guys. We've all been in a case, and there's been a little bit of off gassing, and it's glowing green on a torch. A little bit of that, not technically phosgene, but like it's burning off refrigerant, and I mean, it can't be good for you. It's probably gonna kill us all eventually. I mean, we're all gonna be in the mesothelioma, commercials eventually. It's gonna be like us against DuPont.
Have you been in the refrigeration field for 20 years? Are you suffering from mesothelioma? Then please call 1-800. You're screwed.
I mean, there's a couple ways to deal with this. Like on like a case basis, like say you're like you're fixing a leak in something in a case, or like valves ain't holding. A couple ways to deal with this. Okay, like so you can pull the pins at the rack, or wherever the schraders are. Pull the pins, get them out. I mean, usually I pull the pins every time I pump something down, just in case if something happens, it's blowing out that hole too, instead of like just the hole I'm making. So it's not as bad. So pull the pins. Let it weep out of there. It's always going to take the path of least resistance. So whether it's out the hole you made or out the 2/4 inch holes where the pins aren't, it's going to go out the 1/4 inch holes, hopefully. So pulling the pins, big help. Vacuum pump. A vacuum pump is a good alternative. The only thing you have to watch with using the vacuum pump while you're burning is a lot of times once you seal up whatever you're burning, you could end up sucking the solder out of the joint or the silfloss out of the joint, and you may end up making pinholes on yourself. So I've had that happen before.
Yeah,
So
you can like adjust that a little bit. Like you moderate down, right? So if the vacuum pump is really pulling where you don't need it, you could, either use your gauge set or the line on the actual vacuum pump to kind of, regulate it down a little bit so you're not pulling such a strong vacuum on it either.
yeah, I mean, you just gotta pay attention. But that's just one more thing, like in a bad scenario, like where your eyes are burning, that you already have to play with. So that's one thing. The vacuum pump, the field piece vacuum pump, I actually love this feature of it. It has a connector, a hose connector on there.
Yes.
So you could connect a hose to it, like we were doing that today, and you could just connect a 5/8 garden hose to it. I think it's 5/8 or it's 3/4.
It's three-quarter pipe connection. Yeah. So if you watch,
yeah, it's whatever's in my van. It's whatever garden hose fitting it is. It's literally on there. So you just throw it and hook it to whatever hose you use for de-icing, and literally throw it out the rack house and let it exhaust out of that pump.
so when I made the video for the actual vacuum pump, that was one of the features that I showed on, because I remember when I used to do ammonia work to, a lot of times you had to purge, whatever vapor out. And sometimes, we had to connect on the Ritchie, excuse me, the Ritchie vacuum pump. You can adjust it down to a hose connector and do this, same thing that Kevin's talking about. But that's what's really nice about the field piece one, that you can hook it to wherever up, and it's positive pressure, so it's not going to collapse the hose. I just wouldn't recommend using one of those Expanda, what the hell, those quick hoses.
That is literally all I have in my van.
Really? And it worked and no problem, or what?
Yeah.
Huh.
I love those Expanda hoses. When you can fit 300 foot of hose in a 5-gallon bucket, you got me sold.
They don't do well after you hit 140 degrees of temperature, though.
I have the zero gravity ones, the 0G ones, whatever the ones they sell at Walmart. I have yet to have one fail, and they're like 6 years old.
See, I hooked up one for heat on the heat reclaim tanks at a store, because I was trying to wash the shit out of these condensers, and the water coming out was so fucking hot. Like you'd see, I'd have good pressure, and all of a sudden it would just go away, and then you'd see the hose just fucking bust.
Is the black ones are shit though? Like,
okay,
they don't.
Yes.
Yeah, those ones don't last. Like the blue ones are like the thicker, like heavier duty commercial ones. Those ones are great.
Okay.
So the jackass is running over with the power jack. Yeah, I mean, hooking the hose up to that thing, that thing's killer. If you can get that out of the room, a long hose, 50-foot quarter-inch hose, using that and throwing it out of the rack house, or throwing it away from you, like hooking it up to a Schrader, getting it out of the case, getting it out of the rack house, let it vent out of the rack house. I mean, obviously we're not supposed to be venting things, but like at the point here is you can't fix the leak or stop the leak until you get the pressure off of it down low enough where you could actually burn it.
So let me ask you a question, because you've had to deal with this as much more than I have. So have you ever got to a point, because you said it before when we first started, you're like, we almost had to pull the whole charge. Have you ever had to do that? And what steps did you have to take? Because, I mean, if the job is set for a certain amount of hours, and it wasn't set for ice, and it wasn't set for rapid recovery, and it wasn't set up for all that shit, have you ever had to just say, no, we can't do it? It's bleeding by too bad that we need to do this. Have you ever had to do that?
Oh yeah, like a few times now. My last shop, we had a lot of independents, a lot of older stores. I think there was like 4 different times we pulled the entire charge on a rack, because like the main ball valves were bleeding by so bad, and then other ball valves were. And at that point, it's like, okay, we pull the charge, and now we're going to get like 40 ball valves done, and you're getting all new liquid ball valves or all new suction ball valves, making it safe.
So did you have to re-quote the work that you were going to do based off of the newer information?
Yeah, I obviously re-quoted. It is what it is. It's not my rack that's broke. It's your rack that's broke. So either you want it fixed or you don't want it fixed.
No, I get it. I just, for people out there, because like I wouldn't, I'd turn it over to my manager. Like if that was my responsibility, I'd basically go, hey, listen, I tried. I'm going to kill somebody on my crew if I don't do this right. And you run it back up to them and say, what do you want me to do, boss? And let them deal with the re-quoting. But I remember when you used to work for the other cats, you did a lot of those quoting jobs.
Yeah. I mean, there was times like if it was an independent, I mean, I would just call a shop and tell them, hey, I need 14 recovery tanks out here and succubus. And
Your 5 horsepower scroll.
yeah, and then we would just pull a charge. I mean, to be honest, like with that 5-horse scroll, like I could pull 1,000 pounds of liquid out of a rack in less than half an hour. And like I never use rapid recovery. Like I refuse to use them. Like there's no point in us using them. I mean, that's our work. So we could do it just as efficient as they can. I mean, so I'd rather just do it myself. So it's cheaper. I could have 2 journeymen on a retrofit for the 2 more journeymen the night of a gas changeover for the cost of rapid. I could have them just doing what rapid was doing.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of people don't have the succubus 5000 to suck out how much refrigerant that fast. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. I mean, you could easily build one out of a condensing unit. There's probably like 40 sitting at the shop right now that are like just in the boneyard.
So what just so you guys know, so what Kevin's referring to is, we covered this on another podcast, but so Kevin used to have like I think it was a 5 horsepower scroll. Scroll. Yeah, I'm sorry, scroll. 5 horsepower scroll that basically he just hooked straight up to the suction of this system and just, had it piped in where it was, turning whatever refrigerant it pulled back into liquid and just throwing it right back into a couple 100-pound cylinders, 100-pound empties, right?
We would go right off the drop leg in the receiver, and we would push straight liquid into the suction of this pump,
and it would chew it up.
It would just eat it all day long.
No. Did it at least have an accumulator on there?
Oh, nothing.
Oh,
it just had a big suction header with a bunch of ports on it. It would eat it all. I probably pushed 60,000 pounds of gas with this thing.
If that's not like a publicity thing for Copeland compressors, I threw 60,000 pounds of liquid through this motherfucker and it's still going.
Like we would get like we would have like a gallon of oil hooked up to it with an oil pump, and we would just like turn a quarter valve on, and we would inject a little bit of oil every once in a while once we saw that it was all liquid. I mean, and we just let the crankcase. We had 3 crankcase heaters on it, and just let them run all the time. And it just went and went and went. And when it got down to vapor, it was so quick. I mean, it would just suck vapor out of this thing like it was nothing. And then we used a plate and frame I'm sorry, I can't call it a plate and frame heat exchanger because everybody gets upset. A little brazed plate heat exchanger to get it out. But yeah, I mean, there's been times where we've had to pull the entire charge. I mean, I haven't had to do it as of lately, but I mean, it is an option, guys. Don't think it's not an option. I mean, if a customer is forcing you to like work on safe with that and, forcing you to do that, that's not the customer's choice at the end of the day, because they can call somebody else and kill some other vendor. Me personally, I'd rather not die doing this job. But I mean, I'm going to try everything I can. And if I think it's not safe enough, then it's not safe enough. If I can't get it, I mean, we've done some pretty sketchy stuff that we probably should not have done. We've cut lines with like 30, 40 pounds of pressure in them and burned a ball valve on and then close one side of it.
No, so one of the things, I mean, we were talking about this a little bit before we started actually recording. But one of the things you can do, like, so I've had systems where they're not holding back and they're just bleeding a little bit of pressure. Obviously if I'm doing work, you're trying to use a vacuum pump, to pull some of that vapor out, but sometimes you can't. So what I have done, this is going to piss off Kevin, I know it even before I say it, basically you can drill a hole into the suction header or whatever that you're putting into and throw a stinger in it. Kevin, do you hear me? I throw a stinger in there, which is
not a stinger. It's a pookie.
So anyway, throw a Schrader fitting in there and put that in the hole that you're going to put in, and that way the last thing that you're sealing up, after you sealed up the connections that you're doing, you seal around the stinger or the pookie, whatever you want to call it, and then finally put the Schrader core in the stinger or pookie, and then basically then you have it's easier to seal up a Schrader than it is a brazing joint that you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do this all the time, but I don't carry like the thin pookies, like the release ones. Ben, I usually have the quarters or the 3/8 ones. only in my truck, because if I'm going to put a Pookie in there, I want one that's going to be solid and it's not going to, bend or break. Don't put the little shitty 3/16 ones in there. I don't know why they sell those things.
They sell them for the real small shit. Like, you know what I mean? They're meant for the really itty bitty stuff, but like, don't ever put them in a case. If anything, use nothing smaller than a 1/4 inch.
He's 100% right there with the 1/4 inch. I mean, the bigger you get it, and the shorter you cut it, the better. Because I mean, the less sticking up, the less leverage it has to bend. I mean, just be careful with that. A Pookie is a great way to be able to seal something up. I mean, if you're trying to burn something and it keeps blowing out the sill floss because it's got too much pressure and there's nothing for you to pull. Usually on the rack, you can pull a Schrader from somewhere. You don't have to do this, but I mean, there is times you do. But in a case, like, definitely, if you don't have a Schrader to pull or a liquid line or somewhere you don't know where it is, or like condenser, obviously do that. Okay. And then secondly, don't be afraid to cut a line and put another ball valve in. We just ran into this the other day. Loop piping, ball valve didn't hold. Okay. Well, we couldn't recover the whole loop. We were doing case changeouts. We're doing case changeouts. This thing ain't holding. It's got like 10 pounds of pressure on it. We can't get any lower. It won't go. So I ended up taking a Milwaukee tubing cutter to it. I cut it loose. I slammed the ball valve on. I left the one side open. We burned the one side. We shut the ball valve off. It's right next to the other ball valve. We shut the ball valve off. Now it's isolated. Now we could safely work on it. And then in a later date, if the customer wants to get that other ball valve removed, that's on them. But, we're doing case changeouts and we're making it serviceable for service if somebody has to come there. But I mean, don't be afraid to cut a line. If you know which one it is and it's bleeding through, don't be afraid to cut it and put a ball valve on the other side of it. I mean, it's one thing to make it, safe and serviceable. I mean, obviously that's kind of hackish, but like at the end of the day, our job here is to, keep food cold and, make it safe, so you go home to your family. So like, I'd rather not choke all day long. So I'll put a ball valve, there on the other side of another ball valve if I have to.
Just for temporary though, right? I mean, you never want to leave two ball valves. One reason is, you don't want any kind of, trap for liquid, right? Trap for liquid, a hydraulic explosion is niche key. It's no good.
Yeah, I mean, if they're right next to both each other, like, I mean, the chances of them both getting shut off and left off is pretty slim to none. But like,
come on, it could happen.
Yeah, and I could win the lottery also. So, I mean, it's pretty slim to not happen. But that's up to the customer. If the customer wants to pay to get that ball valve cut out, then that's on them. Like, obviously, I'm going to quote it, but like, some people are cheap. Some people would leave that ball valve.
Lowest bidder.
Yeah, and some people would expect the contractor changing out the cases. They should just eat the ball valve because they were graced, to be able to do the case change out.
See, that's why construction prints are golden, because at that point, well, that ball valve wasn't called for, so that ball valve wasn't built. Like, I remember a job that I did, and the engineers, kept saying to me, well, we assume that you knew that. We assume that you know that. We assume that you knew that. And then finally I was like, okay, so you're telling me that whoever quoted the job from our company was just to magically assume that they had $400,000 more worth of work that we should have done because it wasn't on anyone else's prints, because during the job, the electrician would come up to me and say, hey, it says that you're controlling this. The plumber would come up and say, hey, you're controlling this. The HVAC guy would be like, hey, you're controlling this. I'm like, fuck, I know. It's not in my prints. So when we had this big meeting, it turned into, well, you should have known that you were controlling it. I'm like, why? Because I was supposed to read everyone else's prints? No, I'm supposed to read the refrigeration and the EMS prints.
Yeah, well, welcome to supermarket refrigeration. So putting a ball valve there, like, it is what it is. Like, I'm going to quote it.
I just thought of something I forgot to tell you.
Put a ball valve there, it is what it is. I'm going to quote to remove it, but like, at least you could safely work on it. Now, like, God sent that has like come out the last couple of days or last couple of years is these fans. So like Milwaukee has a fan, DeWalt has a fan, Makita has a fan. Dude, I love this thing. I keep it in my van. I use it with me all the time, even doing service work. I keep it in the van. It's great, to keep you cool. And it also serves another purpose. It can help air out an area like a case. So like a case, if I'm burning something and it's just like burning my eyes, I can't see, I put the fan in there. I put the fan, by where I'm working to blow all that gas out of the way and blow it back towards, the other end of the case. And that way I could, it'll usually take the gas away enough where I could burn and see, and I could do stuff, or like I could have some positive airflow moving past me and in my direction. I mean, that fan is a godsend. Like I was doing suction service valves behind the rack today, and I would have been dead if it wasn't for that fan. Like putting, positive air back there and moving that gas down towards the exhaust fans.
So safety question now, because someone asked me this and I couldn't really answer this question. So I think someone in safety asked me, would you need a confined space permit to basically work inside a coffin? Because 90% of the time, when you're doing like major brazing inside a coffin, it's a lot easier just to go inside the case, right? If you have, is it considered a enclosed space because the top is open?
These safety people have gotten out of fucking control.
I'm just, it's a legitimate like thought. Like, I mean, is it considered a confined space?
I don't know. I mean, I would say no because the top's open and there's easily you could easily exit the case. But I mean, let's be honest. Like half the shit we do here isn't safe. But all these big companies, want all the safety training, to say that they're covered. But keep on working hard. Yeah, so like I mean the fans are like a godsend. Like I have an M12 one and an M18 one. The M12 one is amazing. It's magnetic. I could put it up on the backside of the rack and push air down at me. You could clamp it to things. The M18 one's kind of bulky, but like it moves a ton of air. Like that thing is awesome. You'll put that, with the vacuum pump going. I mean, you could easily, take that where it was you couldn't even see and make it better and make it at least manageable to the point where you can get joints done and you can see joints and you're not like just brazing in the dark with like your eyes closed or you got the squinty safety glasses on.
The squinty safety glasses? Which squinty ones are you speaking of?
Where you squint when you're like cutting something with a grinder. You squint your eyes so that way you don't get anything in it.
Jesus, why would you do that?
I mean that is half the people in this trade. Don't act like it's not.
Hello guys, this episode is brought to you by Fieldpiece. The tough wireless vacuum gauge MG44 from Fieldpiece is engineered to give you the reliable reading you need and the ease that you want. Confidently measure vacuums with a reliable leak-proof seal. The MG44 can be used with the JobLink system app from up to 1,000 feet away. This easy-to-read backlit LCD offers a graphical representation of the vacuum progress, even in low light or at odd angles. Visit www.fieldpiece.com for information or follow us on social media at Fieldpiece Products. Thanks again and enjoy the episode.
Hey guys, today's episode is sponsored by Westermeyer Industries Serviceable Oil Floats. Many oil separators contain an oil float to effectively meter separated oil back to the compressors. Westermeyer Industries has taken this concept and perfected it with their new line of serviceable oil floats. These floats feature an improved design with fewer components, allowing for greater manufacturer consistency and up to 20% increased oil flow versus their legacy models. These floats also feature an integrated magnet to shield the oil path from debris and have been field proven in supermarket applications. Westermeyer Industries offer replacement oil floats not only for their own separators, but also cross-compatible models for our competitor oil separators as well. You can find out more about the Westermeyer Industries serviceable oil floats by visiting westermeyerind.com/floats. Once again, that's westermeyerind.com/float. Let's get on with the episode.
Don't act like it's not. Don't act like you've never done it.
No, absolutely not, dude. I got solder in my eye one time. I was doing plumbing work, and I had safety glasses on, and a piece of solder got dripped down off the pipe. It was when I was first learning, so obviously I didn't know what the hell I was doing. It dripped down because I was throwing so much fucking solder on, and it bounced off of whatever back up in my safety glasses. And ever since then, like I just didn't. I had the fear of God that I didn't want to go blind.
I grab safety glasses when I have them, which I do have them a decent amount, but like sometimes you just gotta do the old squinty eye. You ever seen those TikToks?
So anything on the Advanced Refrigeration podcast that Kevin says about safety, please don't follow. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, back there without the fan, like would be like absolutely miserable. Like, I mean, especially stuff like on the ground, like in a rack room, like where like it's just like collecting in the bottom of the rack. Like you're screwed without a fan.
So
I mean, we've go ahead.
do you use your oxygen rig for a breathing apparatus too? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, maybe. Just you take a couple puffs of the oxygen if you shut the torch off, or you have another torch there that you're just injecting oxygen out of the 40 tip.
What's the setting on the regulator?
God, you're such a hillbilly. Yeah, I mean, like get that air moving is like key. So, example, like a Costco, like this is where it kind of becomes a nightmare. You end up having to pop the roof hatch. Okay, get any air moving you can. Pop the roof hatch. Like we've gone as far as to take like a 36-inch like fan from Harbor Freight, like the big belt drive fans, since there's no exhaust fan in the motor room. So we'll take one of those guys and set it up on the roof hatch. So that way it starts venting up the roof hatch. If you guys can't, if you're trying to fix a leak and it's just bleeding by that bad, like get that air moving out the roof hatch. Same thing with like if you're in a mechanical room and like there's no exhaust fan in there, which there should be. Like I've been in mechanical rooms in the city, they're 100-year-old stores, and like there's no exhaust fan. So you got to get that air out of there, and you got to get it moving somehow. So like box fans, I mean, if you need box fans, I mean, just go buy a fan if you can't. Like, I mean, a fan is going to move air. Like you need that fan to to be able to breathe. Brett's acting retarded.
You're calling me redneck, and the only thing I can think of is Mr. Indiana over there with your cowboy boots being like, just got to go down to Maynard's and pick up some box fans so you can breathe, so you don't breathe the phosgene in, so we don't know why it burn.
Yeah, considering I don't talk like that, like that's like more Texas than anything.
Been down here for a while.
Yeah, like we talk normal up here, like we do say Menards, and that was like real Wisconsin-ish.
Well, all right. I was going to ask where rough comes from, because you never say the word roof. It's pronounced roof, not rough.
I don't know. Chicago. So, yeah. Getting the area ventilated the best you can is key. I mean, get all that gas out of there the easiest way you can. Vacuum pump, recovery machine. Recovery machine works great too. I mean, just let it run, just do its thing. And while you're burning, the same thing. The recovery machine works, just don't recover it back into the system, obviously, because if it's sucking air, you don't want that. Recover it out, blow it outside. Vacuum pump running, vacuum cleaner. Seen people use that too. I mean, that's got a decent amount of suction. Go ahead.
One of the other things that I have done in a pinch, I goofed up big time, and I was supposed to cut out. We were turning a split header rack into a single header rack, and I was supposed to take out the check valve in between the two. I don't know why the boss just didn't tell me to take the guts out of the check valve instead of trying to rebraze everything, because it would have been a hell of a lot easier than what I did. But he basically had me cut it out. And, on a screw rack, there's a lot of different valves, especially when the rack's, 15, 20 years old, where they don't all hold back. And, oh man, it looked like I was a third grader painting with or brazing with freaking candle. Like it was so bad. And what I ended up having to do is I think it was like 2-in-1 or it was 2-in-1. It was 2-in-1 pipe. And it was bleeding out so bad that I'm like, I just need to stop the leak and then find out where it is. And I'll get rid of the rest of the refrigerant, and pump it back in. So at that point, I basically made a TP, where I was just finding whatever piece of copper I had laying about and like, squeeze that down a little bit and squeeze it down to, inch and 5, which squeezed down to, 7/8, and then put a little pookie on the end, and then basically found out where the valves weren't holding out, removed the rest of the refrigerant, and then continued on my business.
So I'll say one thing that lost my entire train of thought.
I was talking about making a teepee.
Yeah, biggest torch tip you can find. Like if it's bleeding by that bad, the hotter you get that pipe, the better. So like 40 tip, 50 tip. Like I have a 50 tip in my van. Like we were using that today. Like we were burning 1.5 inch.
50 rosebud?
Yeah.
That's fucking huge.
It'll sweat in the settling tank. Like
Yeah.
We were on sweating 2 and 5 with it. So
Holy shit.
I mean, we were hitting that today. I mean, it would heat up 1.5 inch like instantly. So the bigger the torch tip, the hotter you're going to get it, the more penetration you're going to get, and the better chance you're going to get of sucking the sill floss up into the joint. And it's less time you're going to be exposed to all the burning of your refrigerant. So I mean, bigger torch tank, bigger torch tip. A 40 tip, a 30 tip works okay. I mean, a 30 I usually have a 40 or 45 on my torch all the time. And that's generally what I use. So, I mean, you could pretty much do, anything from a cap tube to, whatever with that. So just taking the patience and, planning out the job. That's another thing. When I do if you have a leak and it's this bad and it's not going to seal, plan the job out. Find all the ball valves. Shut down more ball valves downstream of it. There's always more ball valves on a rack. Go shut down ball valves downstream of it. I mean, I've had it to where we had a leak in a rack house on a line coming back, and the suction, it was bleeding through somehow on the circuit. So like we ended up going and shutting all the hand valves into cases, and it helped. It got it to the point where we were able to, get it all out and seal up a line. So there's always more valves somewhere else. So just find more valves, shut it off. Even if you shut every single valve in the system off. I mean, we've had to shut all the compressors off, all the, all this off, all the liquid ball valves off, just to get something isolated enough where you could bleed it down and bleed down the other side of it. If you could find a valve, start reaching around, if you're on discharge lines, you think something's bleeding through it, it's colder. You got a valve that's colder, it's probably bleeding through. So that's your, work it back and forth. Go ahead, Brett.
So one of the things, with shutting down anything, you should be looking at the rack and finding out where you're supposed to be isolating, what you're trying to isolate, and go through and try to figure out and mark every single valve you can. So I've seen guys, do nail polish where, let's just say they're the startup tech and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to check this out for the job that we're having tomorrow. And they'll mark every single valve that they have to do with a small piece of paint so they don't miss anything. So they don't have to do the bullshit that we're talking about when you're dealing with, maybe you forgot to close something where it's not pulling all the way down, and it's something as stupid as that. Now, ball valves leaking, I mean, you really can't do anything except for the little stuff that we're saying, that might help you out. But, sometimes just scoping out the job and just doing a little bit of pre-work, to make your job so much easier. I hear Kevin talking about it all the time. You just got to scope out the job, right?
Everybody needs to get used to ball valves not holding because I'm going to tell you right now, none of these CO2 ball valves hold. So
none of them?
No. Like they all bleed through.
Doesn't matter what manufacturer?
Doesn't matter what manufacturer. They all bleed through. So whether it's Mueller, whether the Sporlan ones, like they all bleed through. Apollo, it doesn't matter. The high pressure ones that Hill Phoenix has, they all bleed through. I don't know if it's something to do with the material, like makeup, like the nylon in there, that it's just like permeating it, but they all bleed through. I mean, I absolutely despise the check valves around the ball valves with CO2. We've had more check valves bleed through than anything. Those check valves failed nonstop. We end up pinching them off all the time.
So check out. So when you're doing a lot of cases, when you're installing a lot of cases, make sure you are checking, because a lot of times, the manufacturers or any of the prints used to have you making your own little manifold with the ball valve and the check valve in parallel. Sometimes they sell them as a kit, but now a lot of times the manufacturers are putting them inside the cases. Make sure the check valves are in the proper direction.
You mean all the people from the temp agencies putting these cases?
Yeah, that
popsicle sticks and thumb. Yeah.
Yes,
So,
that.
yeah. Yeah. Good luck on that. We find more check valves in backwards in cases than anything. Real kick in the dick too when you find one of those, especially if there's no loop ball valves.
Oh yeah, that's kind of lame.
Yeah, I mean, you end up having to cut everything out. I always make my guys put loop ball valves in, even if they're not called in on the print, because I'd rather not dump a whole charge to, fix one case. Yeah, I mean, guys, just ventilating the area, looking at your exits, same thing. Like knowing where, like, you can get doors open, get it aired out in there, getting stuff moving in there, knowing your backup plan. If you're going to fail, you should never fail.
Yeah, I mean, also knowing where your emergency ventilation button is, right? A lot of times on the racks, you'll have an e-stop that'll basically shut down the rack, as well as turn on all the ventilation, depending on, no matter what the temperature is. It's basically a fail safe that just, derives everything on. Make sure that is operational,
I've always
before
wanted
you
to hit that glass break.
What's that?
I've always wanted to hit one of those glass breaks.
Well, no, I mean, there's usually like a bypass button that, it's not necessarily the glass break. You know what I mean?
I always wanted to do it though.
just because you want to break the glass.
I guess. I mean, we were doing a startup one time and at a brand new Costco, and they made us put glass breaks on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
And some motherfucker, the morning of grand opening, stole the fucking glass breaks, unscrewed them, and fucking walked off the job with them.
So nothing would run on the floor?
Nothing would run. And like Microthermal had not finished programming all the alarms yet for it. So it shut everything down in the back end. And
so the alarm, so it wouldn't give you a physical alarm, but it's still programmed to shut it down. So like you wouldn't know why it was actually shut down. Other than a random DI was just shutting shit down.
You couldn't find the DI either. Yeah, it was a bit of a pain in the ass, but like, yeah, they that one got me. Yeah, I mean, guys, ventilating the area, coming up with a plan, coming up with a backup plan. I never planned to fail, so you gotta keep that in your head. Keep that confidence up. If you don't want to fail, if you plan to fail, you're gonna fail. So, I mean, kind of have a backup plan. I mean, whatever plan B is going to be here, whether you're going to start shutting off more stuff, venting more stuff, figure out what you're going to do, have everything there, have a couple of mirrors there. Like I've had a couple like tight joints we had today, like makeup mirrors. They sell at like Target. They work great. Like they have like a zoomed in, like magnified makeup mirrors where they're like, they're magnetic. Mm-hmm. So like today, like I was doing a 2 1/8 joint behind a compressor, behind the rack. You've all seen those Sam's Club, Walmart rack houses where they're slammed against the wall and you have absolutely no room. So I had 2 makeup mirrors set up and I was able to do the whole joint and just watching the mirrors. I'm just watching the mirrors doing it.
See, I have the opposite approach. I mean, I'm make the plan, execute the plan, expect the plan to go off the rails, throw away the plan. Like I'm always thinking that it's going to be worst case freaking scenario. So I'm prepared for it.
I'm the opposite. If you plan to fail, you're going to fail. So I plan to succeed. And if I don't succeed, then I'll rethink what I'm not succeeding at. But I'm also a very negative person. So like I'm already thinking worst case scenario in that plan. So
did you just say you were a negative person?
I don't know, to a point. I'm just in bad situations all the time. So yeah, I mean, so just planning everything out, guys. I mean, making sure you have all your material, like the makeup mirrors, like those are big help. Making sure you have gas on hand if you need it, recovery drums, and if you can't, just start blowing holes in the pipe and drilling holes, relief holes, and putting pookies in and venting the area. I mean, if you can't, I've never used one of these, but like they're all over Chicago. There's scuba tanks and like all these rack rooms in Chicago, but it's kind of nice. Like there's full scuba, like face masks, like they have to have in there. I think all stores should have to have that. It should be in every single store. It should technically probably be on our trucks too.
What's that?
The scuba setup.
See, there's. I agree in spirit, but like think about like even like I know a bunch of companies that spend a lot of money on the arc flash shit, and how often do people use that?
Oh, nobody ever wears that arc flash shit.
That's my point. So, I mean, are they really gonna scuba up?
I mean, I would if it was that bad. Like if it was burning like that bad. Like, see, I was gonna ask you this, okay, because you did a bunch of ammonia. Like I always see the ammonia guys with like that obviously they can't go in like an entire room filled with it because it's still gonna kill you. But like they have those like respirators with the full face respirator, like the one that goes over their head, like it's full like glass style, like in their whole face is in it. Like, and it has some like special cartridges in there. It's supposed to help. I know it's not obviously over a certain ppm, it's probably still kill you.
Well, yeah, they have two different types. Like, so like when you do the hazmat training, they basically have a tanker full of anhydrous ammonia, and you're set up in the whole gear, like the whole white top to bottom mask, covering every part of your body, and basically they release start releasing the anhydrous ammonia, and you have to walk up to it to basically break your fear of being like, oh shit, what do I do? What do I do? You know what I mean? It's almost like that's why they have practice, firefighting shit, right? To get you ready for when you actually have to do it. So it depends on severity. Like, that mask would be good. Like if, let's just say we're doing an oil separator coalescing filters, right? If you ever seen a temp right, you could have, it depends on how big the oil separator is, because on most of these screw machines, the oil separator is right underneath the actual compressor, because discharge basically comes out of the screw machine, goes right into the big ass oil separator, which might hold 300 gallons of oil, right? So you get rid of all the oil, but you still have that little bit of vapor, and that even when you're doing a regular HFC oil change, you still see refrigerant being boiled off that oil. Same principle. So like if you're changing just an oil separator filter, you're not going to need that whole apparatus. You could just do that with the regular cartridge style, where it's not going to screw you up. It's really the severity of how bad it's leaking.
Yeah, I mean, but like, could you take one of those like ammonia masks with a cartridge in it and use it for like DX? Would it work?
No,
I mean, because like
I don't think so, because I mean, you got to remember, like, it's just like anything else. We have different filters that filter different stuff, right? So, I started talking to this cat that does cryogenics, but it's different how they do it. So, they do have units that are like 2-stage units that are pulling the saturated down to like -40, -50 degrees, because it's running into a vacuum. But then they have also other machines that it's basically just a dental air compressor that they're compressing air out from the atmosphere and then running it through scrubbers. You know what I mean? Because what the end result is, they're trying to get vapor nitrogen out of the air, and then they use liquid helium to basically cool down that dry nitrogen into liquid nitrogen. So I mean, it's dependent on the filters that you have in those things, right? I mean, it's going to take out different stuff. So I'd have to do research to try to figure out. I don't think I've ever seen a guy doing HFCs like wear a mask like that. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I bet it would help.
Yeah. If anyone, hey man, if anyone knows, drop me a line at advanced refrigeration podcast at gmail.com. Let me know if you know of a certain mask filter that actually works, whatever 3M cartridge that you'd actually need, right?
Yeah, I mean, because I mean, even the mask filter, you think if it even got your eyes, to where it's not burning nonstop. I mean, because that's like the worst part of it. Like sometimes, so like now where I'm hacking up like green nasty, part of my lung. I got the black lung over here from burning all day long. But guys, just be safe. Ventilate the area. Use the fan. And if you can't get it, you can't get it. At that point, it's time to back up, recalibrate, and whether you got to chop a line and put a ball valve in and weld one side of it and shut the other side off and then weld it. I mean, that's always an option. I mean, that's not the safest option. I mean, obviously that's a middle of the night bush fix, but it'll get you back going, and you'll be okay. Why do you got to laugh at me for the shit like that?
I don't understand why you call it a bush fix.
I don't know, like in the middle of nowhere, like you got no parts, you got nothing, like you're by yourself.
Like when you're an hour and a half, 2 hours away from a supply house down in Uvalde, Texas.
Yeah, it wasn't there, but it was farther somewhere else. It was another place there than me, but
Gotcha.
yeah. But regardless, guys, just plan it out, and if you can't get it, remember, your life's more valuable than that refrigerant. So let her go.
All right, guys. Have a good night.
Yep. Easy.